All right, 99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You already know what time it is. And right here, we actually are joined by a Chicago legend in the punk rock scene. We got Tim Rogner of Allister right here live on the air. And of course, YouTube as well. How are you doing this evening?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing best I can possibly be, just trying to start off 2023 the right way. But I guess we're chatting with Allister, so obviously 2023 is already going as smooth as possible.
Yeah, it's the best way to start the year.
I definitely agree. How was your holidays?
It was good. Yeah, it was nice. It was pretty relaxing. I had some time off of work and just kind of chilled with my kids and waited for Santa Claus to come. It was great.
Hey, best way to be, especially with the past holidays with the COVID-19 pandemic, man. It must have felt good to actually kind of get out a little bit and actually enjoy the winter festivities.
It did feel good. Yeah, it was nice to actually get together with some family and actually see people. So that was definitely a plus this year.
But I got to take you back to the beginning of your amazing career this far within the music industry. And I want to take you back to the amazing year of 1994, where yourself and the other three band members of Allister actually came together in high school to form this iconic band. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this band. And of course, what actually made you guys decide to ultimately come together and form what we know today as Allister?
Yeah. So, oh man, it's been so long. Sometimes I can't believe it's been almost 30 years. So we started in high school and it was like my junior year maybe. So it was like 94, 95 ish. And I started the band with my friend John. We had been going to school together for a couple of years, and we were playing with some other guys in school, and we did like we formed like a cover band for our variety show, kind of like our talent show or whatever. And we jammed with those guys for a little bit, and they wanted to do like covers of Rush and Led Zeppelin, and like, all right, cool, I can get down with Led Zeppelin, but the Rush covers, nah, no thanks. So John and I kind of decided to start writing our own songs, and like, at the time we were really big into bands like Screeching Weasel, Face to Face, Green Day. We're like, that's the kind of stuff that we want to play. And so we couldn't really find anyone to jam with at the time. So we both went off to college. And it was within, I think, our first week of college, our freshman year, John met Eric. And who Eric was, he played bass, I played drums, John played guitar, and Eric was really into the same bands that we were, loved all of those same bands. He was like, yeah, I'll play bass with you guys. And so that was kind of the genesis of Alistair. That's how we first started. That was the original lineup where we came up with the name. We started playing shows under the name Alistair. And then it was, I think, 2 years later, it was 2 years after that, um, when Scotty joined the band, because we kind of wanted a second guitar player. And so Scotty played bass in a local band from Chicago that we knew, and I had been friends with him for a couple of years. And so Scotty joined the band to play bass, and Eric moved up to play guitar. So that kind of solidified our lineup then.
And when you mentioned a few moments ago about how the other band you were previously a part of wanted to play Rush and whatnot, I gotta admit I cannot picture you playing Rush. Just like obviously from what I grew up listening to with
Sure.
Alice.
I mean, yeah,
Like
Canadian
don't get
band,
me
yeah.
wrong, I'm Canadian. I love Rush, but just the two bands, Alistair and Rush, they just don't really go well together.
Which is probably why that band in high school didn't necessarily last.
And also, I actually read as well that before you guys actually called yourselves Alistair, I actually read that you guys were called Phineas Gage. I read that via Wikipedia. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about Phineas Gage, and of course, what actually made you guys ultimately decide to, of course, change the name to Alistair.
So it's kind of a funny story. So yeah, we actually played like two or three shows under the name Phineas Gage. Like, I think in a basement of a house somewhere, probably when we were like 17. And I don't know why I think we had probably just discovered Phineas Gage in like a psych class or something in high school, and we thought it was cool. We thought it was an interesting story. Um Ultimately, we decided to change the name, but I will say that there was a period of time for about, I want to say, 4 weeks, maybe it was 2 months, where we called ourselves Fallout Boy. Believe it or not. So we
Really?
originally called ourselves Fallout Boy, and then we never played any shows under that name, but we kind of referred to ourselves as Fallout Boy, and then ultimately we decided that that name sucked, and so we decided to change the name to Alistair, which, if you didn't know, was named after a character on the Canadian television show You Can't Do That on Television. And so that's where we got the name Allister, and everybody, for whatever reason, liked that name, and that's the one that kind of stuck.
And when you mentioned a few moments ago how you originally called yourselves Fall Out Boy as well, when the actual band, the other band Fall Out Boy, I guess I should say now the second band called
Mhm.
Fall Out Boy actually emerged within the punk rock scene. What were your guys' like just opinion of that? Were you guys like, wow, like someone actually used that name?
Yeah, we thought it was really crazy because we're like, "Whoa, look at this!" Like another band decided to call themselves Fall Out Boy, and it was kind of like, "Well, good for them." And we actually ended up taking Fall Out Boy like on their, I think it was their very first tour ever. I don't know if they had ever toured outside of Chicago as Fall Out Boy before, and we took them on the road. And we got to hang out with those guys and became friends with them for, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. And we told them the whole story how we used to be called Fall Out Boy. I think they got a good kick out of that.
And also as well, a few years later in 1998, you guys actually became one of the very first bands to actually sign with Drive Through Records. I was wondering if you can actually just tell our viewers the story behind that record deal, and of course, what was it like actually being one of the very first bands to actually sign a deal with that particular label?
Yeah, it was cool. At the time, Drive Through wasn't, anywhere close to the label that they were known for being these days. So this was in 97 ish, I think. And we, as a band, as Alistair, we just kind of wanted to get our stuff out there, and we wanted to send. We had made a kind of a crappy little demo tape of like 6 or 7 songs, just like in my parents' basement on a 4 track. And we were like, well, let's just send it to record labels, like, because that's just kind of what you did. So we packaged it up. We like sent a press photo and like a little blurb about ourselves, and like sent it through the mail, like to the addresses that we found. In this, there was this book that we had where we could find addresses for record labels and stuff. And we sent out, I don't know, 15, 16 of those demo tapes. And Drive Through was one of the only labels that actually responded back to us, and they wrote us a letter back and said, hey, we really like these songs, but we want to hear some more from you. And we're like, oh my god, like this is insane, like a label is actually interested in our music. This is crazy. And it just so happened that we were planning on recording a 7-inch ourselves and pressing it ourselves and releasing it ourselves anyways. So we're like, okay, well, we're planning on doing this 7-inch record, and we'll record it, we'll press it, and we'll send you guys a copy, see if you like. And they're like, okay, sounds great. So we did that, and that ended up becoming You Can't Do That on Vinyl, which was our very first like official release. Um, and we pressed like 500 copies of that 7-inch, and we sent Drive Through a copy, and they wrote us back like immediately and said, we love this, like we want to sign you guys, we'd love to do a full length album. And we're just like, oh my god, like that's crazy, like yes, of course we're going to do it. Because we were, I don't know, we were 18, we were maybe 19, and we were just excited that there was someone interested in releasing our music. We didn't really know who Drive Through was at the time. They didn't know who we were, but it ended up being pretty cool.
And when you mentioned a few moments ago about how you guys actually did a phenomenal demo, actually the very first demo that originally caught the ears of Drive Through, is that like the demo has it ever been actually like kind of uploaded to the internet so the listeners and fans of Alistair kind of listen to the very early recordings of what you guys actually did?
Ooh, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't even know if I have a copy. I probably do some. It's buried in a box somewhere, and I don't even know if I have a cassette deck anymore. I'd probably have to bury or dig that out of a box somewhere too. Um, but I don't think that's online anywhere. I don't think you can find that, and for probably good reason too. It's pretty awful.
I gotta say though, I was pretty much asking that because I'm a fan myself and I've never heard that. So I was hoping if it was, you can kind of guide me in the right direction on that one.
I'll tell you what, if I can find a copy and I can get some digital versions of those songs, I'll 100% send them over to you.
Hey, sounds good. I'm not gonna lie. I love hearing bands just at the very beginning of their careers. Like it must be really good too to think back on those days and see how much you guys have grown as a band.
Yeah, it is cool. Especially nowadays. That was 25, God, almost 30 years ago now for us. And so, to look back and kind of see where we came from and all the things that we've kind of done in our career as a band, it's kind of a cool feeling. It does feel pretty good.
And also as well, on October 8th of 2002, you guys actually released my personal favorite record titled Last Stop Suburbia. I was wondering if you can actually just tell our viewers a little bit of the backstory behind that monumental project. And of course, did you ever think that album would be as big as it is today when you first put it out? Because that album really skyrocketed your guys' band all the way across the world.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing because like never in a million years did we ever think that record would be successful. We honestly didn't think more than like 100 people would ever even hear our band. And so, most of those songs were written probably while we were in college. We were probably like 20, 21, 19, 20, 21. And again, we were just excited that Drive Through was still willing to put out and release another album for us. And it was the first album that we got to do with like a real budget, right? So we had like a real producer, a real engineer, like we got to go to a real studio. um we recorded the album in March of 2002 out in Southern California, in Venice Beach. And we stayed like in an apartment complex, like literally a block from the beach. We walked along the beach to the studio every single morning. It was a cool, like super relaxed vibe. But again, we didn't really think anything of it. Like for us, it was just like, hey, we have this chance to record in a real studio. This is really fun. Let's just kind of make these songs sound as good as we can. Never thinking that people would actually listen to them or like them or come and see us play. So, again, 20 years later, we're playing those songs, and we just did a 20-year reunion show not too long ago. And, a whole bunch of people came out to see us and sing along. And it still blows my mind, like every time that happens, because we still just consider ourselves like a crummy garage punk rock band from Chicago. That's just what we still consider ourselves.
And I got to say, that's what us punk rock fans love, is that just that gritty, grimy punk rock sound, man. Us fans love it. As a fan, I can't describe it. I'm just drawn to it.
Yep, me too.
But also as well, while we're actually on the topic of that album, I remember as well that the song "Somewhere on Fulton" was actually on Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. I was wondering, how did you guys actually land your song on, of course, a Disney video game?
That's a good question that I actually do not have an answer for. I don't know how that happened. I'm guessing Drive Through had connections, and they probably had reached out to Drive Through to ask if they had any bands who wanted to contribute a song, and Drive Through, I think, got that song on there for us. Um, but honestly, I'm not really sure how that all came about. It was like one day that was just out there, and we're like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Hey, and especially back in those days, you can't really go wrong because that's definitely some great promotion, especially in the
For
video game
sure.
industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were pretty stoked about that.
And also, as well, in the year 2002, while we're still on the topic of this year, you guys also went on to perform at the iconic Warp Tour. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about that. And of course, what is one of your most fondest memories that you can recall just of that tour? Because as we already know, the Warp Tour is iconic.
Oh man, yeah, Warp Tour was great. So I can actually tell you, one of my favorite memories from 2002 Warp Tour actually took place in Canada. Um, so first of all, we were lucky enough to play the entire Warp Tour. I think that was the year that Drive Through had a stage, and we played the Drive Through stage, and it was awesome. Like, I mean, every show was great. It was really good for our band. It was just before. Last Stop Suburbia came out. So it was kind of like a press, tour up to the release of that record. So it was really good for us to kind of get those songs out and get the word out. But my favorite memory from that tour was in Montreal. Like, we're huge baseball fans. Like, I am an enormous baseball fan. So I love going to see games like anywhere that I can. And it just so happened that when we played in Montreal, we played really early that day. Our set time was at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we were done playing by like 2, maybe 2:30. And so we hopped a train and went straight into Montreal, and we got to see an Expos game at Olympic Stadium. before they moved obviously to Washington D.C. And I don't remember for sure, but I think they even played the White Sox. And it was just a great experience because like other than being on tour and being in Montreal, I don't think I would have ever had a chance to go see that stadium or go see that team play. Besides that chance that I had, so for me that was really really cool.
And the one thing I absolutely miss just in this part of the music industry at that is the Warp Tour, man. I still can't believe they actually took that away. It was such a great avenue for bands like yourselves to really get heard. Like so many bands got their start just on the Warp Tour itself. It's really sad just to see it go, but I guess in a way times change, but
Mhm.
hopefully they kind of come to their senses and bring this phenomenal festival back.
Yeah, I mean, I think all good things do have to come to an end at some point. But there are some other really great festivals kind of nowadays. I mean, they're not necessarily touring festivals, but you got Riot Fest in Chicago, which is always a huge draw, and that's pretty cool. We haven't played that yet, but we're hoping to at some point. But yeah, Warped Tour was great. I remember going to see it as a kid when I was like 15 or 16. I went probably 3 or 4 years in a row, and then took a couple years off, and then the next thing I knew, we were playing and we were just like, "Wow, this is cool." And they just kept getting bigger and kept getting bigger, and so, like you said, that really helped out bands like us.
And was 2002 the only time you guys had the chance to play Warp Tour? Or did you guys actually play following years as well?
We played, in 2004, as well, but we didn't play the entire thing. I think we played half of it, because I think normally Warped Tour is something like 45 or 50 dates, and I think we did like 25 to 30 of those dates in 2004. But that I mean, that was just as cool as 2002. It was still really, really fun.
And also, while we're actually on the topic of 2004, you guys actually made a cameo appearance in the 2004 motion picture film Sleepover. I was wondering, how did you guys actually get that cameo opportunity? And of course, what was it like just displaying your guys' talents on the big screen?
It was cool. I'm not 100% sure how we got that, either. I know that the producers of the movie, I think, were maybe Drive Through Records fans, like, in general, and had kind of approached Drive Through and said, you know, "We like some of your bands. Do you have any bands that you may recommend for something like this?" Um, and I think our name was one that came up, and the producers ended up liking us and thought it would be a pretty good fit and liked some of the songs. And we were a little dubious at first. We didn't really know what to think, because this is like Hollywood, this is like major motion picture, and so we weren't really sure how to feel about it or what to think about it. And we for a minute we were kind of like, do we do this, do we not do this? And like ultimately we decided, well, we're never going to have another chance to do this again, so we might as well. And I'm glad we did, because it was a really cool experience. Like, it was we spent a week out or we actually spent 2 weeks out in California. One of the weeks in Pasadena, we spent actually filming, and then another week in, I think it was Hollywood, at a studio, re-recording some songs and recording some brand new songs for the movie. And it went by really quick, and it was really fun, and I'm really happy that we got a chance to do it. It's a lot different. I'm not really sure what I expected when we got there, but it was a lot different than what I had thought would take place. It's kind of a lot of hurry up and wait. You just kind of do a lot of sitting around and waiting, and then you actually film like maybe a grand total of like 10 minutes per day. And then the other 14 hours you're just kind of standing around waiting for people to do stuff. So, but it was cool. It was very fun.
So I have to ask, because obviously, like after you guys did this appearance, like did you after you had the opportunity to star in a movie and whatnot, did you have the taste and actually want to get into acting, or was that just something that really wasn't for you?
Boy, for me personally, I could go either way. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting art form to me. Um, and I really respect people who can act well, and like, the top actors. in the world are very, very, very talented at what they do. It's, kind of like the best musicians. So I respect people for that kind of art. I don't know if I could do it again, and I don't know if I'm very good at it. Um, they cut a bunch of my lines, I think, after they realized that I wasn't very good. So I probably don't have a future in Hollywood. I'll stick with writing songs and making music. I think that's where I'm best served.
And also, as well, aside from Alistair, you are actually a part of another amazing band by the name of Hot Alice. For the listeners that actually might not know this about you, I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about Hot Alice, and of course, what actually made you actually join this phenomenal band.
Yeah, thanks. So Hot Alice is a a band that my brother and I started up kind of after Alistair kind of took a break for a little while, and it's just kind of a side project that we have where we wanted to do something a little more. I don't want to say experimental because it's not experimental. Maybe more experimental rock and roll. Where we actually screw around with effects pedals and see what kind of tones and sounds we can get and like just be a little creative in a different way. And that's kind of what we do with that band. And so, we play as much as we can. We're all kind of, there's four of us, and we're all kind of based right in the Chicago suburbs. We all live basically within like 20 minutes of each other. So, we jam all the time, and we're constantly writing new songs, and we play shows in Chicago a lot. And we've released a couple of records that you can find online. And it's a little bit of a different outlet, a little bit different avenue for creativity. It's sort of similar to Alistair, I think, and like I still think we kind of gravitate towards big choruses and catchy hooks and things like that, but it is a little bit more rock and roll, I think, than what you would get from Alistair.
And also, as well, on November 5th of 2021, Hot Alice actually released the amazing five-track EP titled Del Vista Boca. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this particular album. And of course, does Hot Alice have any plans to actually release new projects this year in 2023?
So we sort of do have plans to release some stuff in 2023. We're in the process of writing a new record right now, and we're not 100% sure if we want to release another EP or if we want to do like a full length or how we kind of want to do it. Um, we have, I don't know, we have about seven, maybe eight new songs that are kind of ready to go. So we're hoping we can get together over the next couple of months and write, four or five more, so we can kind of have a lot to choose from. And then we'll kind of go from there and see what happens. And we'll probably do something similar to what we did with Del Vista Boca, and that is we recorded the drums at a studio, kind of in one of the suburbs here in Chicago, and then the rest of the record we just did here at my house. I got a little bit of a studio setup where we just kind of push some buttons and tweak some things ourselves and try to make it sound as good as we can. And it's for us, it's more of like a fun side project. Like we take it seriously, but we also don't take it too seriously. Um, and we don't have any shows scheduled as of right now, but we're planning to get some stuff scheduled, hopefully within the next couple of months.
And the one thing I've always wondered about this particular project is, when you guys first dropped it, I was always wondering, is this album name actually inspired by the Seinfeld segment? Because I remember back in the day that they actually had a segment which was actually Del Boca Vista, and you guys named it Del Vista Boca.
Yeah, so that was our little twist on it. If you watch the outtakes of that episode, Frank Costanza always screws it up, and we thought that was pretty funny. And our previous album too is a Seinfeld reference, Scandals and Animals. Clearly we're gigantic Seinfeld fans, so we take a lot of inspiration from those episodes. So that's where that comes from.
I gotta say, I'm glad I got that right because I'm a huge Seinfeld fan myself. So when I saw that album came out, I was like, wait a minute, I remember that
Awesome.
episode.
That's
You can
cool.
I,
Yeah, it's we're like it's so weird because we're kind of at that age where we're like, our friends and like people in our age group know Seinfeld and probably would get the reference if they were even like moderate fans of the show. That episode they've probably seen, but people who are 7, 8 years younger than us don't really watch Seinfeld, and so they don't really get the references. And it's just like, man, it's the greatest show ever in the history of television. Like, I mean, it's not even close.
I definitely agree. It's a show about nothing, but it's so successful. Like,
For
so
sure, yeah.
whenever I watch it, a lot of my friends are like, "Man, that show is stupid." I'm like, but I always categorize Seinfeld as it's like the New York Yankees. Either you love them or you hate them. And when it
Yeah,
comes over here, I love the Yankees, so I love Seinfeld.
fair enough. I'm really excited because I got my oldest kid into Seinfeld, and he watches all the episodes with me now, and he's 15. So, like, for me, that's amazing. Like, I'm so excited about that. Like, we could sit for hours and watch episodes of Seinfeld. It's great.
And also as well, on February 28th of 21, you actually released your most recent solo single titled Leaving. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about this release and of course what ultimately inspired you to kind of pursue your own solo career on the side.
Yeah, I think that's just something that, like, I think just being creative and making whatever kind of music kind of comes into my head, is just something that I have to do. I think it's just kind of a part of me, and so that was, you know, uh, it doesn't sound like anything else I've ever written, um, and it was just kind of a fun thing to put together. And I'm probably going to do a lot more stuff like that over the next year and over the next 2 years or so when I have some time, because that was really fun for me. And like I said, I can just do that stuff now kind of in my free time. There's no pressure to put anything out or release anything. I can do it, like, as I feel comfortable doing it. And for me it's really fun. Yeah, I can't ever stop being creative, or writing songs.
And I actually had a lot of individuals actually message me once they found out that I was interviewing you. And the one question they all wanted to know is Alistair actually going to be releasing a brand new album anytime soon?
Ooh, isn't that the $64,000 question? So I will say that we have been writing some new songs, and we have talked about releasing a new album, but that's about as far as our planning has gone thus far. I don't think it's out of the question. I think it's definitely a possibility, but I don't know when that would actually be. Um, there's still a lot of legwork to do, to get to that point. We'd still have to write a pretty good uh, amount of songs, to have enough, where we would feel comfortable recording a new record. But it's certainly not out of the question. And I know it's something that we all want to do. It's just kind of a matter of when can we do it, and are we going to be able to do it? So stay tuned. We'll see. Hopefully.
And I gotta ask, what is next for yourself? Is there anything we happen to miss during tonight's broadcast? Anything else you do still want to talk about, promote, and or just talk to with our audience about? Well, we still got you here live on 99.9 Punk World Radio.
No, nothing really, nothing else that I can think of. I would just appreciate if you guys could check out all the stuff that we've released, whether it's Alistair, whether it's Hot Alice, whether it's the solo stuff that I've put out. Any kind of support is great support. Because and I love hearing from people. You can message me on Twitter, um, Instagram. Those are the only two social medias that I have, but you can find me on there, and yeah, give me a shout.
And if you don't mind me asking as well, since you actually brought that up, do you actually know your social media handles offhand? That way, our listeners, if they're not already following you, they can pull out their phones and actually smash that follow button right now while they're actually watching the man himself live.
Yeah, so my Instagram is just Tim Allister, and then my Twitter handle is humbugrog. It's HUMBUGROG.
And I got to say, first and foremost, Tim, before we part ways this evening, thank you so much for just giving us a bit of your time, sliding into the radio station dial, and just chopping it up with me about some of your amazing accomplishments within the music industry, and just talking with us about your most recent projects. It was such an honor to speak with you, and hopefully down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon. But for now, definitely have yourself a wonderful night, and of course, thank you for years of monumental music that all of us had the opportunity to enjoy for many years. I greatly
For sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for listening for all these years. I appreciate that.
Hey, you are most certainly welcome. I still listen to Allister like you guys came out yesterday, so
Awesome.
always getting airplay here on 99.9.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Tim. Have yourself a wonderful night.
All right, you too.